Welcome back, CSC230 W1 to ex7 Jumbotron. This is part 8, and we're moving along here, and now we're starting to do a little tweaking, a little design kind of edits as we go. And what I'll do first is kind of focus on the main area here. We're keeping this white for now. We could always put a light color in there if we want, like an antique white or something, maybe just to soften everything up, or we could leave it white. And we'll just adjust the headings a little bit, the spacing a little bit here. That's pretty much all we'll do for that. And then we'll talk about maybe shadows a little bit, and that's it. That's all I want to do here. I don't want to get into responsiveness yet. We'll save that for another video. So let's just do a little more tweaking here. And what I want to do is work in my main area. And we're already working with the buttons in here. And I have nothing going on with just main yet, but I guess I could use this. I'll just put main H1 and I'll give it a color. And what color will I use? Well, I'll use the color that I used for the nav background. That way I'm being consistent. So here's the nav background color. I'll use that. And I'll highlight that RGB color. And I'll go back down to main. And it's the main H1. And I'll just paste the color there. And should be it. So it shouldn't look a whole lot different. And also what I'll do, I think, I'll refresh this. It doesn't look very much different, and that's okay. I'm going to put a little bit of space below it. So you could use margin or padding below. I'll do margin bottom, and I'll just click on bottom so I type it correctly. And I'll put like 0.5 em to start and see how that looks. And that puts a little bit of space in there. That's fine. That's all I want to do right now. And I think I might just spread out the line spacing here a little bit. So that's going to be the call class. Let's see what class that is. That should be all of them. Now we did give a call class for all three of them, so we could do it for all of them. Now it would actually be for the P. So it's going to be call, it's going to be the P's inside of call. And it could actually be the P's inside of main for that matter. But I think it'll be more easier to understand if it's the P inside of call. Now keep in mind, we don't have a call div, but it's worth checking out. If we're talking about the P inside a call, that's just a class, but that's not actually an element. We don't have an element that we're looking at. So let's just try that. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we give it the call class and we say, okay, the P inside the call class. It might work, but it's worth checking out. So we're still in the main area. And I'll do it before the buttons because as we go down the page, the P is before the button. So I'm going to do call P. And again, we could have just put in main P. We know that will work, but I'm curious if call P will work because we don't have an actual element that's class of call. We just have a class of call. But let's just see what happens here. I'll put line height and I'll do 150 so it's fairly noticeable if it works. And let's see what happens. All right, that worked. So that works okay. So we can target the call class, even though we don't have a call actual div, but we do have the class, so that works okay. And you know, we could even make the text color a gray, or we can give it the whole main a background color. And we might do this. So remember, main stretches across, but the container does not. I didn't have a main declaration here, but let me just do one for main in general. And just give a background color, ground color. And let me try antique white. And if it's too dark, we'll just maybe lighten it up slightly. So that should give us a nice warm feel to the page. Now that's a little dark. I don't want that dark. I want a little bit lighter. Although it looks nice, I might want to go a little bit lighter, and that's why you can go in here and hover and just kind of move kind of out a little bit, make it a little bit lighter. So it's just very kind of a little bit of a light cream color. And see if this looks a little bit better. Less beigey. Now it almost looks white. Let me see if I can find something in between. Bring it in here a little bit. And again, this may not look a whole lot different. That kind of looks like the way it did. That's okay. And I may decide to maybe go orangey down here and put white text in it. You know, that might look nicer. Now that I have this with this color, you know, maybe the footer might look better in kind of a dark orange. You know, that's kind of the stuff we're doing here. So here's the footer background color. I had it peach puff. And maybe if I did dark orange, I'll just kind of wipe this thing out. And I'll see how that looks. And it's a little I don't know if it's a little harsh or not. That's not bad. I might even go a little bit darker with it, and then I'd have to make the text white. So if I hovered over here and I wanted to go a little darker, I could move down. Moving down would make it a little darker. And I'll refresh it. And that's okay. Now I'll make my text white, or peach puff. Maybe I could even make my text peach puff. I could go in here, because now that's the same. So I'll try peach puff and refresh it. That's not bad. I think that looks pretty good. I think. I don't know. Maybe this would look better in a dark orange now. Maybe that red is a little too noticeable. Whatever color this is, it's dark orange. I could copy that, and I'll go up to my H1 that's inside of banner, and instead of dark red, maybe I'll make that dark orange, or a darkish orange. And it looks like I copied a curly brace there. And maybe I'll make it 3M and see what that looks like. I don't like that. It's harder to read, although I don't like it, and I don't like it so big either. Oh, I made it 4. So I accidentally put it 4. So that's way too big. That's why it looked ridiculous. And that looks a little better, although maybe we could try a drop shadow under there. Now, that's where I'm leading into. How would I do a drop shadow? Well, CSS shadow effects. It's under advanced. There's shadow effects. And you could just put a shadow. You could make it blur. You could put a color. Now, we probably want it black. So the way this works, they have text shadow and box shadow. And they use kind of the like down and over kind of thing. It's kind of a property for horizontal and vertical. And I'm not sure which is which, but they're probably going to be the same. I think it looks like it starts with horizontal. And you don't have to put negative, I don't believe. I don't think you have to put negative, but we'll see what happens. Here's try it yourself. I'll just see what happens here. It looks like when you do it, it looks like it goes down and over. So we'll try that first, and then we actually apply a blur to it, which would be the third number. So we'll see how that looks. And if you have 4 numbers, that includes the color. So I'm going to try this one. I'm just going to highlight this text shadow, this whole thing here. And I'll go in here, and this is for the H1, and we're going to put a text shadow. And there's text shadow, and it would come up when I start typing it. And maybe I'll go a little bit more. It's pretty big, so I might do 4, 4. I'll do 5. Now I don't want red here, I want black. So I'll just put black. So that's the color. So this is the color, this is the blur, this is the offset, vertical offset, this should be the horizontal offset, I believe. If not, we'll change one of them to double and see what happens, just if you're curious. So let's run this. Let's check it out. And actually, that looks pretty good. Could even go lighter with that. And you could even put a border on it. You could put a white border. Now, I don't want to make it too crazy right now, because I think that looks pretty good. And it looks like it does go, just curious, if I made this one 8, that should be horizontal, so that should go over. Let's see what happens if we do that. Yeah, and it goes over. So the first one is horizontal. The second one is vertical, so that's fine the way it is. And if you want less of a blur, you could go down. If you find it too blurry and you want it a little more sharper, go down on it and see what that looks like. Now it's a little sharper. You could use black with RGB and adjust the opacity. And what I mean is, you can just go here. Here's black. And if you just turn that down, that's opacity. You see it's putting an opacity value there of 0.6. So I guess that would be the workaround for that. So if you want it a little bit lighter, just go in here, hover, and adjust the opacity of the black. Now when I refresh this, that looks a little subtler. Although I don't mind it the way it was. I'm going to go up here and put it up to maybe, there's 87. Doesn't really tell me the number. I'll just do it somewhere up there, 90. Let's see how that looks. Perfect. I think that looks okay. I could use a brighter orange, because the darker color you use with a shadow, it tends to look muddier. So, instead of this RGB here, even though I was kind of borrowing the dark orange, I might just go back to dark orange. I might just go back here and put dark orange, because dark orange was a little lighter than we had. So let's see what that looks like. That's not too bad. I could certainly tweak it more, but this looks pretty good. I think this is looking okay. Everything isn't spaced out or sized to the device yet, but I think this is okay. Since we started making these paragraphs with higher line height amounts, It's pushing this down a little bit, so it's not all fitting in, but you know, this is going to vary based on people's computers and all that kind of stuff. But that looks pretty good. It's different than we originally started with. Could put a drop shadow on this thing on the button. So if you want to put a drop shadow on the button, that would be on, remember what this was? This was the BTN welcome that's actually in the banner class. Where is that? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this BTN welcome, this was my mistake. And I'll have to fix that on one of the videos. I'll probably just put an arrow saying, hey, move this. But just so I'm catching it now. This stuff, BTN welcome, should all be in the banner area. And that should be here after the paragraph. That's where that should be. I had it in the wrong place. Now, it's not a big deal, but now that I'm looking, now that I have a lot of styles going on, it's harder to find. So if I wanted to put a drop shadow on this, now it's in the right place. And they have shadow effects. Now, if you first go to shadow effects, they say for box and for text. Now, I don't know if it's really a whole lot different, but I'll click on box shadow. I think they have it down here and see if it looks different. Box shadow property. And I guess you use box shadow. Although I don't know how button will work with box shadow, but we'll see how that works. And it should work the same way. It shouldn't be any different. Matter of fact, I should be able to go up to the other one that I had on here. It's text shadow. Maybe text shadow will work. I don't even know. It's a button. I don't know if text shadow will work on button, but I'll copy this, the text shadow, and I'll go to the welcome button and I'll throw it on there. And I'll see if it works first before I change it to box shadow, but maybe it won't. Maybe it'll put it on the text inside the button. That's probably what may happen. And it does. It puts it on the text inside the button, which is okay. Now if I put it on box shadow, let's see if, hopefully that'll put it outside the button. And it does. That's what I want. That looks good. It's even darker than I need it to be. So I could even put this at like 0.6. Make sure I don't have an extra point in there. Make sure I have a, oh yeah, 0. It's the fourth value, so it's 0.6. And let's see how this looks. Yeah, it's a little subtler now. So that looks okay. I mean, you could put shadows on these buttons too, but I think they look okay. I don't know if you need shadows on them. These colors could change, be a little maybe light grayer now that I look at it, but we're doing okay here. So I'm going to stop here with part 8. And what we're going to start focusing on in their next parts, and maybe I'll even make it a different exercise for responsiveness since we kind of have this done. Maybe I'll just, 8 videos is enough, and I'll call it ex8 for the responsiveness. I think that's what I might do, but we'll continue with it in ex8. But in ex8, our Jumbotron will be responsive. But this will be done with the CSS, at least for now, at least for what we have so far. I think, 8 videos to get this all laid out. I think is good. So that's the end of part 8. That should be the end of what we are calling ex7. And again, we just put some shadows on our headline, our H1. We put a shadow on our button. I think we spread out some stuff here. So things are looking pretty good. So we're doing some design work here and it's starting to look nice. We're trying to use Unity and make sure we have the same colors that we're using throughout. So it has a nice unified kind of look to it. And we're going to keep going and making sure that it works when we make it real small and it would work on other devices. So that's what we're going to do next. But that's the end of part 8 for ex7 Jumbotron.